And so we're live. Welcome to Trampled Underfoot Podcast. Trampled Underfoot Podcast every Tuesday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. What is it? 6:30 p.m. West Coast Time.
Pacific Time. Yes, that's right. This is episode 68.
That's right. And so, I do want to say that not because I remembered, but Mark Lindsay, we were talking back in the green room, and he said, well, hey, you know what? It's going to be Thanksgiving, and, we don't have any Thanksgiving type, we didn't even think ahead of time. At least I didn't. So we want to wish you guys that hear this a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes. This will go live the week of Thanksgiving, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving out there, and hope everything is going well for everybody. It's time for a lot of stress. I know some folks get all stressed out cooking for family the first time. Other folks are like, it's a day that ends with Y. But however you treat it, and for those of you who aren't in the U.S., happy Thursday or happy Tuesday for us. So
yeah. And so, we were thinking about Thanksgiving, what we could possibly, what does Thanksgiving mean to you, Mark, if you had to mention?
If I was going to get all deep and philosophical about it, and it's a cliche to say it, but that's what the holiday is for. Remember what you've got, who you've got in your life, and just maybe show a little bit of gratitude that things played out the way they did. They could be a heck of a lot worse. So we have our token Canuckistani in the chat over here on YouTube, Jim Dockerel, reminding us that Thanksgiving was last month. Yeah, if you're in Canada, but you guys will catch up eventually and figure it out. But
I still have not sat through the Great Canadian Historical Adventure. I have subtle insights. I like history. I'm one for history and stuff, and more just broadly things that are a big question mark in the past. I'm kind of like big on that. I've yet to explore the whole Canadian frontier, historically speaking, and what that. I mean, I have the basics. I know that some of the say French were transplanted down towards Louisiana at some point as well. I mean, there's a lot there.
Mhm.
I mean, that's just me pulling one thing, out. But I know there was a lot of pelt trading. I know that it was a wild it's still a wild frontier. People will say
in a lot of places, in a lot of areas. Yeah, I mean, you get up in the Yukon territory, or heck, even northern British Columbia. It's not a soul to be seen for hundreds of miles. I mean, there are places out there that there'd be a lodge out on the lake that you have to fly into. It's not accessible by road at all. And there's hundreds of those, at least in the western part of Canada.
A lot of
it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous country. I got to spend a little bit of time back in Newfoundland and New Brunswick back in the late 80s, and it's gorgeous country. And I was talking to one of the locals. I was in a store just talking to one of the locals, and of course I did the typical American tourist thing. I said, you get a lot of snow up here? He said, well, last year wasn't too bad. We only got 3 meters. And I thought, oh, well, that isn't too bad. And then I thought, wait a minute. That's meters. A meter is 39 something.
3 feet. No, meter's 3 feet, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit more than that. It's 39 inches and some change. Mm-hmm. And I was like, holy cow, that's 10 feet of snow. No, man. No, not this boy. It was gorgeous in the summer, but I wouldn't want to be there. So as far as Canadian history is concerned, this probably has absolutely nothing to do with real history. Jim Dockrell could probably tell us, but there's a Canadian TV show, or there was a Canadian TV show. It might still be going on, I don't know, called History Bites, hosted by a guy named Bill Green. And he's a funny comedian, very clever man. And it was basically, this one episode was called History Bites America versus Canada, or no, History Bites Uncle Sam, it was called. And it was basically comparing the US and Canada, historically speaking, going back to the beginning. And very funny show, very good show. I learned a few things about Canadian history, learned a few things about American history, believe it or not. And this was made in, I want to say either the late 90s or the early 2000s. And it was called History Bites Uncle Sam. If you find it on YouTube, if you find it online, I would highly recommend it. It's very good.
History Bites Uncle Sam.
Right.
And what can you give us at least an overview?
Oh, well, boy, it's been so long since I've seen it. I burned it onto DVD. I don't even remember where I found it. And I've watched it, but it basically, they talk about the open borders, but it's comedy. They compare the cowboy to the Canadian Mountie as the two stereotypical, the Mountie is the stereotypical Canadian and the cowboy is the stereotypical American. It's fast paced, a lot of cultural references, but a lot of historical references to it. It's just, there's the one scene that I can remember, and I don't remember which fort he's standing in front of, is, we repelled the Americans when they tried to invade us, and we fought them off here twice, but we still lost it. We don't want to remember that. And, we burned down the White House. Well, actually, we didn't. The British did it for us, but we wanted to be there, and stuff like that. It's just, there's some funny stuff that goes on back and forth and everything. It's not anti-American. It's not anti-Canadian. It's just some funny stuff in it, but it is worth watching.
So a couple of things. So one, Canada, if you think, in like the way they speak, and America, yes, we could tell differences, but they're not big at all. There's certain little minor inflections that are truly American, and there's minor inflections that are truly Canadian, but the bulk of the communication in common speak that we hear, I can pick it up when I hear a person talking on a YouTube video without knowing that they're Canadian or not. After you hear them a little bit, I say, oh, that person's Canadian. That said, the word American, so everything has a gray areas. Canadians are Americans as well. It depends on how you want to use the. But no, they totally are.
Yeah. The continent is North America, so
So, but the reason I mentioned this is that one time I was speaking to because I used to work in the Everglades, and we get people from all over the place, and in conversation, and this is where it depends on where it depends on the reach of the definition that you're using or are incorporating it. People could get confused with certain things, and I mentioned, because something or other, and I included him as American, and he wasn't very happy about that. Not that he was totally blowing a gasket, but he made a point of pointing out to me, we're Canadian, we're not American. And I did not push the fact, right, the topic, because why bother in that given scenario? But the fact is that he is completely American. In the case of we're all from it's the American continent, you know.
Yeah.
But sometimes, but so we'll use the United States. I mean, what do you say? I am United States citizen, or how do you say we're American? However, people from South America, Central America, Mexicans can say we're American.
Mm-hmm.
But how would one in the United States, you see what I'm saying? Like Canadians, we're
I
Canadian.
do. How do you identify your nationality without using the word American? Yeah.
Right. Well, now in our case,
Mm-hmm.
if you really broke it down, and I'm just thinking and like off the top of my head, we would probably have to say, I'm a Floridian.
Mm-hmm. And I'm an Oregonian.
Right. Because in fact, you know what I'm saying? We're from those particular states or whatever.
Right.
So in reality, obviously I'm American, but if you had to, you know, or actually, what if you're a Mexican from Chihuahua? Are you a Chihuahuan or whatever you'd want to break that down? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
that poses the question of the week. If we were to do that, if we were to call ourselves based on the state or province we live in your case, you're Floridian and I'm Oregonian.
Yeah.
What would a person from Saskatchewan call themselves? That's the question of the week. I mean, would they just call themselves a taxi and move to Ottawa? You know,
would they have to call a taxi from Ottawa to come and pick them up because they're the ones with the autos?
You know what? That's not any easier. Would you call them an Ottawanian or I don't know. That's a legit question. I'm not trying to be funny.
Well, it has funny implications. But you see, so the whole Canadian thing, you know, so yes, of course, they're Canadian, but they could just as easily swap it out. But there would be confusion by saying we're American, and then an American would hear that and say, "Wait a second, buddy, you're Canadian." But Americans, what do they say to break down? Because I'm American. Everybody understands it like it's a common accepted thing. If you're American, you're from the United States.
Right.
But that's not true in and of itself.
Right.
People from South America, I've heard them say in conversations with them, do the same thing to me. They say, whoa, we're American too. And I'm like, oh, no, yeah. I'm just trying to, because what do you say?
Yeah.
United Statesians?
Well, what I used to do to disarm things, because you never know which way it was going to go. When I lived over in Germany, when my wife and I were stationed there, I would just right up front call myself a Yank, because that did two things. Number one, it let them know they knew right off the bat that meant I was from the U.S. Okay. But it also disarmed them, because some people over there considered Yank to be an insult. When they were using it, oh, you're just a Yank. It's supposed to be a pejorative term. But if I threw it out there, that disarmed them. They didn't have that pejorative. That let them know I was from the U.S. and that I would take absolutely zero offense at being called a Yank. And I had one guy in a little pub over there say, oh, you're a Yank, huh? Yep, I'm a Yank. And it just totally disarmed him. He ended up, bought me a beer and the whole thing. Off we went. But
right, because people don't know, they're not exposed to a particular, like, you could say something in their local. I think that you could either offend someone or not, depending on the person's, how they see the situation. There's an intention. It depends on your intent, and one could. So one time, and I've said this before, I was young and I went out. I was invited to have lunch with a coworker of mine, and so she was somewhere from Asia, probably China, and this was like back in the late 80s and stuff, and I was young, and so we're walking back, and I asked her, so you're Oriental, and
oops,
she said, and I didn't mean it. And in fact, I don't even see it. I have high respect for people regardless of, I look at people as individuals.
Yeah.
Same
here.
That's the main thing. How are you as a human being? I don't care. I mean, that's, because that's what counts, right?
Yeah. If you're a dipstick, you're a dipstick. It doesn't matter what your shoe size is. Yeah.
Right. So, well, now here's the thing. So I said that, and she was really teed off about it. And then she said, "Oh, it's okay." After I explained, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, I didn't." But it just goes to show that one not knowing or having information, and so human being, it's easy to create for a situation to occur with a few uneducated words. By no fault of one's own,
So if you don't know, you just don't know. And that's personally, I just don't think it's really I mean, I just don't know why it ever comes up. It'd be kind of saying like, "Oh, you have black hair." Why would it come up? Yeah, I have black hair. Who cares?
Oh, well, the yeah. Well, no, because I was getting to.
I do get it.
I wasn't saying like, oh, so I was saying, oh, so I was trying to open up to see for her to hear a little bit of, I guess, history or stuff. And that was just a choice word but it wasn't even, because she explained to me, Oriental are objects, are actual physical objects and whatnot. She told me. And I said, oh, okay. I did not know. And I learned my lesson that day. However, I've since heard that that's not necessarily the case. And people, what?
I think it depends on how you're taught and what you're taught. Because, like, for instance, I know it depends on where you go here in the U.S., but a lot of people will use the word Scotch to describe somebody from Scotland.
Which originally was the case, but they themselves.
But to a point, yes. You have the Scotch-Irish, which is completely different, but the same, but not quite. But that's the quickest way to upset somebody from Scotland, is to call them Scotch.
It's a drink.
Scotch. Scotch is a drink.
Right.
A Scot is the person,
Yeah, but that's like, relatively new, though.
It is. It's fairly new, but then again, Scotch was used as a pejorative for so long. They just kind of said, we don't like it. Some folks don't know that. It's an urban rumor. I don't know if it's true or false. I really don't know.
Right.
But that's where Scotch tape got its name. Now, this may be 100% false, but this is one of those things that I've heard.
Is that why they have the little plaid?
That's why they have because it was cheap. It was cheap. It was replaceable. You could basically just use it temporarily and throw it away. Folks just started calling it Scotch tape. And
so there was a connotation.
Yeah, Scotch was a pejorative, meant somebody who was absolutely cheap, because Scots do have the reputation for being cheap. And there are plenty of Scottish jokes, and being part Scot, I can tell these jokes. Copper wire was invented by two Scotsmen who were fighting over a penny. The Grand Canyon came about when a Scotsman dropped a dime down a gopher hole. Just stuff like that.
There's a lot of that in different from different ethnicities. Let's say you hear that about. We won't mention them now, but you can come up with a bunch of them. Sure. I'll just, on the heels of that, I'll just say, and I had mentioned this to you earlier, which I thought was funny, and you got a kick out of it. But since I did those videos with the DNA, and I did one so today I got a video a comment from a person, and it's all about the DNA and stuff, and everybody comments, and it seems to be a place to comment because people have strong opinions and whatnot. Well, this person lays out, he says, so you're Hebrew from my results. And I'm like, what? Where does that come from?
It still blows me away.
There's no explanation. It could be true. Like I was telling Mark earlier, I said, Mark, it's not like, and anything goes, right? And the further back you go, things could happen. But it's like, how did he? So at least give me, at least prepare some sort of explanation as to why you're saying this with a lot of emphasis and like certitude. So I'm Hebrew, okay, and so I find it funny.
And I still can't figure out what would compel a person to type that. Because you've got to sit there and type it out. you know, and it's like,
And there's no reviewing it, right? I mean, unless he reviews. So you have to think, because when I type something out, I just make sure quickly that what I'm typing, and I still
Yeah.
make mistakes. Well, this person typed a very short
Uh-huh.
sentence, and he reviewed it, stamped it, and sent it on its way. So no, he said, so you're Hebrew. He didn't say you're Hebrew, right? No, he said, so you're Hebrew, like emphatically. I was like, oh, how do I answer this? I can't say. Right on, brother. I can't.
I told you the way to answer it is to just "Oy vey!" exclamation point, and just have fun with it. What the heck?
I'm gonna tell you another one that's funny about human beings. You're gonna dig this one. I don't think I've ever told you this one, so this is a brand new one, but it's classic. So, years and years and years ago, I had another channel which I still have for music playing and recording and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And on one. At the time, I was totally involved in listening to exploring the music of the band, which happens to be Canadian, by the way. So it kind of ties in real nice.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Or at least some of them are. I think they're mostly are Canadian. The band, and so I was totally into the band, and so I decided to record one of their songs. I forget which one now. I'd have to think about it, but whatever. I decided to, how they used to dress up the band, sort of like Western, sort of like old 1800s and stuff. And their themes and their songs were about back then and the war, Civil War, and all sorts of stuff. Really cool band, which is called The Band. Well, I said, I'm going to record this song, do a video, but I'm also going to put a hat on like they put a hat, and I had a beard. And I was younger, and I put a suit on to look kind of like the band while I played the piano. And so I did the video, and so I got comments and stuff really nice, this and that, blah blah blah. And one guy, and by the way I dressed, I actually could have looked Hasidic Jew as opposed to what I was going for. Because I literally looked like a Hasidic Jew. I had the beard like this. I had the hat. It was a white shirt and a suit and playing the piano. And one guy, and so there was comments, and one guy says, "Try Jesus, bro," with and it's like,
where does that come from?
Well, because he looked at me, and whatever his world. Whatever his
I know. I just can't. My brain doesn't go in that direction. It's like, huh?
Well, he looked at me. He said, "This guy's a Jew. Try Jesus, bro." Is what he.
I don't know. I don't know, man. My brain doesn't connect that way. It kind of boggles my mind that out of all of the words that you could put together in a sentence to comment on somebody's music, especially. You chose to put those words together and hit the comment button. Yeah, I don't know. We've got answers to the question.
Okay.
But they're different. So I don't want to be starting the Canadian Civil War here, but Greg Snow Crusher says that someone from Saskatoon is a Saskabushian. And Jim Dockrell says Saskatchewanians or Saskatchewaners.
Uh-oh.
So would that mean somebody who wants to move there is a Saskatchewanabe? Thank you. I'll be here all week. Try the veal.
That's funny.
No, it wasn't.
Well,
so but still, I can't figure out. I mean, I do boring videos. And I know they're long and they're boring. They're for people who've never used this particular software before. I'm trying to show them the basic ways. And you can't do this and be brief. You just can't. You have to show every step. So I think, one of my shorter tutorial videos is like 35 minutes long, but my longest one is like 57 minutes long. They're long, they're boring. I know it. So I don't get a whole heck of a lot of trolls. So I haven't really had any comments like that. I've had one or two. So I just, I'm kind of taken aback when I see some of the stuff that other people deal with on their channels.
I mean, if you think about the amount of people out there watching, consuming videos and the whole thing, and they're individual, because I don't know how to appreciate properly if my brain can sort of see it for the massiveness that it is, of how many people are out there that have the possibility of putting your particular sequence of thoughts together. They have that ability, but that completely are not. They're in a completely other world in their head, and so anything is possible because there's
no
so
doubt.
many people. You know what I'm saying? So it's just it's insane.
I just don't get it. That's just not me, man. I just wasn't raised that way, I guess. I don't know. But you know what? There is the anonymity of the keyboard. And I know some people just want to, prove their superiority or prove their knowledge or massage their own egos. I get that. I know that. But people will type out stuff on the computer or through their handheld, whatever, that they would never dream of saying to somebody's face.
Right.
And, I just don't get that, man. The flexing of the keyboard muscles. I just don't get that. And it's like, who are you trying to improve? Who are you trying to prove something to? Who are you trying to impress? Did I say, who are you trying to improve? Try yourself. But yeah, it's just and the funny part is what they don't get is that it's very easy for the content creator to go delete and then ban that person, delete that comment, and then ban that person from commenting on their video.
There's also, well, go ahead.
Well, what happens when they do that is the person will come along to another video and go, "You are a dimwad, you don't know what you're talking about," and hit that comment button, and they will see it, but nobody else will.
Yeah.
So they'll go back to that video and they'll see their comment there and they'll see it's getting absolutely zero attention because nobody else in the universe will see it. So I think that's karmic revenge.
Well, so there's also the idea of that when our expectation, or at least mine, is that people will be civil.
Yeah.
And if you have a qualm with someone, you use that forum to put your doubt over a video or an issue and your troubles over it, but you do so in a way where you're not doing it attacking a person's I don't know how to say, but you're sticking to the subject and trying to suss out the information about the subject and trying to put forth but you're not going for some sort of like the jugular sort of kill.
You're not going for a personal insult. If somebody is factually wrong about something, Columbus landed in San Diego. No, actually, I think you need to go back and check. He was nowhere near San Diego. That's one thing. But to come out and just start, to come out swinging, you're an absolute moron and yada, yada, blah, 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 blah. You're no better yourself, dude.
But there's also that problem that people are on different, this is a big world and they're on different planes with different rules of engagement, different ways of seeing things. And it's just so my standards, that I feel are just don't necessarily, and I might be right? Like my standards, but I might be wrong too. My standards were handed to, like, you can't help but be a product for the most part, I believe, of the people that came before you. You were taught certain ideas and stuff. So you have a certain sort of guidance that occurs, which is it's a pretty effective guidance, what you get from your folks and your grandparents. I mean, it's self-evident. So you're kind of reflecting, and then you have your own personal teachable moments as you continue,
Sure.
where you discard things or you keep things, and that forms who you are. The thing is that if you look at it non-personally, maybe I believe that the way I was taught was right, but wait a second. If you
Yeah.
put yourself away from it, maybe it's not. Maybe some of it is. And
Well,
so there's people out there with different, ways
sure.
of conducting themselves.
Sure. A lot of it's cultural, a lot of it is environmental, a lot of it is social. It just depends on your upbringing and what kind of person you are. I
And a lot of it
mean,
is
there
just
are
mental.
just, yeah, that's what I meant when I say what kind of person you are. Some folks are just more aggressive than others. Some folks are a lot more passive than others. It just, I mean, God, there's personalities on every little micro dot on the spectrum. And you never know what somebody is thinking or what somebody is doing or what they're capable of doing or what have you until it really comes down to it. But I don't know. To me, a certain level of civility is gone. And we've talked about that before. I don't want to get off on that tangent again. For those of you who are wondering, you can go to our website and click the Wayback Machine, Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com, sponsored by Harneal Media. Steve Nealon in the chat. How you doing, Steve? You can go back and check out that episode, but there is a lot of need for more civility anymore. I mean, we're a lot of people say that, well, this country has never been so divided. Well, yes, it has. We kind of fought a civil war. That's how divided we were. Nobody's busted out the weapons yet. But I think if people would just sit back, relax, take a chill pill, and try being civil to one another, about half of the perceived problems we have would just go away.
There's what we have now in the way I see it. The internet is like the Wild West. There's rules, but it's kind of very much, a free for all. And I think that it serves the function of, let's say, a release valve where steam. So it's better to go back and forth at people that have, whether it's political, cultural, whatever the heck the situation is, back and forth, typing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, oh yeah, I'm going to write up this huge essay and publish it it's better for people to bust out with all that than actual. So I think that it's useful in that way. And if you have a doubt over a factual, thing, like whatever, it could be political or historical or cultural, because there's also, or woodworking in itself, like well, you can't do it like that because, or this tool is, all that is fought in a perfect situation, releasing that tension via the keyboard. So in a way, it's healthier than daggers and spears in the streets with blood running down the sidewalks.
Oh, sure. But you said it's the internet is like the Old West. It's not the Old West anymore. We're into Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome territory now. It's take no prisoners, leave no survivors. But yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, you're going to post this big old wall of text. It's going to be ignored. And let's be honest. Has anything like that ever changed anybody's mind? Maybe toward the person who posted it, and that's about it.
One time, I kept writing, and I think I've told you, I think you one time, but somebody when I would be writing whatever topic on a video, I'd go to and I'm typing fast, and I'd type it's, and I'd always have the little, what you call the apostrophe creating it is. And at some point, I got into the habit of just going with the it is, but it's not always applicable. But I'm writing because it's such a short format, and I'm not an English teacher anyhow. But it's not. I know the difference, but I just kept using that habit. To be honest with everybody listening, I just got that habit, and I kept using it in the context of and I just kept going. And then one guy in a reply, he said it's, and he didn't say anything else, whatever. And he said,
yeah.
And I looked, and I looked, what? I looked up. I said, oh, crap. Okay, yeah. I said, damn, I've been using that, because I've just been running right through. And it was a correction, and I was mindful of it from that point on. I still do it sometimes by mistake because I just keep going and I go to. But, so you know what I'm saying? So sometimes corrections are a good thing if you take it in the light of what it is. Oh, should I feel ashamed and this and that? No, but all depending on how it's done to you.
Now, be honest, was it me?
No.
Because I am that guy.
No, you did it one time because I wrote it out. I think it was in the description of one of our and you said, hey, it's here. I said, oh, okay, yeah. So I understand it. I do it anyhow. It's one of those weird things.
I am that guy, and I really do try not to be. I misspell things all the time, but I am totally supported by spell check. I mean, when I'm writing stuff out, it wouldn't matter to the folks listening on the podcast, but I could share a screen and show you. I type everything out. Yeah. Descriptions and all that other stuff for videos or for the podcast or anything. I type it all out in a word processor and I spell check it. Then I'll copy it and paste it. So because I studied English, to me, it's one of those things. We're trying to communicate in the medium that we have available to us. And that is in this case, written text. So I was taught years ago that words mean things. So let's use the right word to convey the proper meaning. That way there's no confusion, but I'm that way with commas. I'm that way with apostrophes. When people use the wrong sense of the wrong version of there or here, it
sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. And you see that all over the place. It's not just in our comments and stuff like that. I mean, I was working in a casino. I'm the floor manager, and the guy from the cafe brings out the little sandwich board and sets it out next to the cafe door. The specials of the day was listed on it, and try our homemade soups. TRYARE. I'm like, dude, you're not even trying. Not our OUR. Belonging to us, not our ARE. Come on. And he's like, oh yeah, oh man, that's just the way I talk, right? But
no. The thing is that he has to. He was taught a teachable moment there, but you also have to save face, so he's processing it. But if he can look in the mirror, he could understand that, okay, I was in error and now I adjust for this and now I'm better for it. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to, the ego thing, which is a hard thing to get over because the ego thing dominates a lot.
But you want to look professional and you don't want to look foolish. It's like, okay, you need to fix your sign because that's wrong. You don't want people making comments to you all night long.
Yeah.
You're right. Thanks. Okay, cool. I try not to be obnoxious about it, and I let 99.999% of it go. Unless somebody's being belligerent, then I'll sit there and I'll get picky. You left a dangling participle here, 5 out of 10 would not read again. Things like that.
What happens is also, and we will look at something, we'll read something, and you'll find the error which sticks out, and you have to sort of reread it. Or many times you read it and you interpret what they're trying to get at. And so not only are you reading the language, but you're having to interpret within the language,
right?
Because it's misspelled to figure out what, and by not doing it clearly, it creates a situation where misunderstandings can occur. And if this were in a
Well,
high level sort of like international discussion, one word could mean disaster. You know what I'm saying?
but
So there is a purpose for the words and using it grammatically correct.
well, yeah, and
Obviously.
and I don't split hairs. I mean, and like I said, I ignore it 99.999 recurring percent of the time. I really don't mess with it because I'm not out to humiliate anybody or anything like that. But if it's to save somebody some embarrassment, I'll say, you know what, dude, you might want to. I'll shoot somebody a PM and say, you might want to fix that. It's I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's look, it it helps the person in the long
Mhm.
run. Anyhow, you're
But
helping the person.
but some things do bother me, and I'm hearing it more and more often by professionals who should know better. And it goes back to the old less versus fewer. Less is a volume and amount. Fewer is a quantity. So the sign up there in the grocery store, 10 items or less, is wrong. It should be 10 items or fewer. Now, we don't say that, and I've accepted that. It ain't going nowhere. It's here to stay. But when I hear somebody on TV in an ad say, we have 33% less moving parts. No, you have fewer moving parts. You don't have less. You
Right.
can say 99% less caffeine. That's true. But, I
Well,
guess I should just be fewer annoyed by that.
well,
So,
so okay, so right. So here's the thing, so that annoyance of yours is because you have your certain level of education and knowledge that um I mean, you see it, it sticks out like
mhm,
a sore thumb. There is also another scenario which we've talked about with Javi. I see Javi there, so I'll bring it
mhm.
up. Um, and I'm wondering what you think about it. So you have what we're talking about grammatically,
Mhm.
but how about in conversation? You'll have people with slang.
Oh yeah.
Um, so look, many times I will use certain slang um, to sound more, and I do it automatically. Like in the normal conversation, you'll say little phrases that are
Mhm.
culturally that we're culturally aware of because they're in common use in a
Sure.
certain sector of society.
Right.
And you'll use like maybe a little bit more of a country sort of little slang,
Yeah.
let's say, that eliminates certain words or changes. And you do these things because it's just unfolding in the normal I
Sure.
do not speak when I'm talking with people. It depends. I could speak specifically. I could do that. Um, but in a friendly conversation, there's more of a laxed for me,
Sure.
and so you'll use certain words. Now, since Javi's there, there's things that just because you use don't mistaken. There's people that can only speak that way. Is what I'm getting at.
Mhm.
Like that is their trajectory. That is their sort of like rule of thumb. That's just how they.
Mhm.
And there's people that are aware of such slangs
Yeah.
and incorporate them in an artistic. You know what I'm saying? What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, and a lot of it's regional, a lot of it's cultural, a lot of it can just be, I say regional, a lot of it can be just, I mean, you can zoom right in and say, no, it's just this area of town. They say this versus something they say over on the other side of town. There's a lot of that. Common everyday normal speech doesn't bother me. Slang has never bothered me. I'll have to sometimes take somebody aside and say, "Hey, what does that mean?" Because I don't know if should I laugh or, get out my boxing gloves. But that kind of thing. I mean, that's common, and we do have different languages. You always spoke to your friends differently than you spoke to your parents, and you spoke to a teacher or a principal differently than you spoke to your parents or your friends. you know. Married guys know this. There is a special language that you use around your mother-in-law. It's total avoidance of anything physical. You don't want to discuss anything physical around your mother-in-law. And it's just something that we all do, and it's subconscious. We don't even know we do it. And it's just, people are people. What the heck? I mean,
Let me throw at you as an example. We're now in the year 2019,
mhm.
fixing to round the corner into 2020.
Right.
But now here's going back. I'm going to throw a few slang at you from the 30s.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
What does this mean for the folks out there? And Mark, make tracks. Somebody tells you make tracks. What does that mean, Mark?
Get out.
Leave quickly.
Get out. Yeah.
Yep.
Buzz off. Shoot.
How about this one? Bumping gums.
Talking.
Yeah, or talking nonsense.
Oh, okay. Okay.
How about giggle juice?
Would have to be alcohol of some
Yeah.
kind.
Whiskey.
Okay. Whiskey. All right.
How about blow your wig?
I guess it would have to be similar to blow your mind that we would use today. To
Yeah.
surprise or.
Yeah, it's get excited about something. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's different. That's a little bit different.
Well, but you were completely. I would say that I would give you that one for sure. How about slip me five?
Oh, handshake, something like that.
Yep.
Greetings, yeah.
Exactly that. How about? Well, this one's you're gonna understand, but cute as a bug's ear.
My grandmother used to say that, but you're talking about that very East Texas. So, I never understood it. How the heck would a bug's ear be cute? But I've heard it.
So Javi's saying those are great expressions of slang. Those are not bad grammar. Well, that's true. Those are not, but we're talking about the whole subject, right? We're not talking about just that. I pointed you out, Javi, because we have had that conversation, but it's not all about that particular thing.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that things in communication. So if somebody, so I'll do this. What if somebody were to bring something like that, one of those sayings, into a conversation just out of nowhere in a group of friends or whatnot? Would it turn a few ears? Maybe, maybe not. What do you think?
It might. It's possible. I mean, especially if you haven't heard it, and it'll probably be commented on. Cute as a bug's ear. Where did you get that from? What is this? 1930s? You think you're Paula Deen or something?
Right.
It might get some comment.
Yeah.
But I don't know that. I mean, we as Americans, and I'm specifically talking about Americans because I really have no frame of reference with Canada or the UK.
Right.
But we as Americans have done so much to the English language, a little bit for the English language, but a whole lot to the English language, that nothing surprises me anymore. And we've been creating our own slang on this continent since before we were a country. I mean, the word dude, we use it every day. Well, it originally meant somebody who was fancy and dressed up.
Yeah, you said that
from back east.
Yeah.
And, that's just one example of, thousands and thousands of them. So normal, and I also want to kind of qualify what I said earlier. When I'm talking about grammar and proper English, I just mean in text. My thing is using the wrong word. I will use the wrong word constantly. I know what I want to say. It doesn't come out that way, but because we're speaking face to face through cameras and headphones and what have you, body language and context is a big thing, and you can follow what I'm trying to say. So conversationally is completely different.
I mean, so we are speaking the same language. And by the way, writing and speaking, like you're saying, there are two differences, because one is you have to read it, interpret it, and here we're having all sorts of signals occurring. So I get, but now going off into another situation is what we are speaking and the inflections that we have and Canadians have, let's say, English,
Sure.
compared to the British
Right.
or the Australians and New Zealanders, South African. And just, that we, the Americas, there's a certain, and this is what I was mentioning earlier on, Canadians and Americans, and that's a mouthful because of what we explained before. We're all Americans in a funny way. It's true, and yet
North Americans, yeah.
Well, why do we have the inflections that we have, which from Canada to America, it's pretty darn, similar, and yet it's a far cry from. Did they develop even like?
It's just a regional dialect of the same. I mean, just look at the UK. When you look at the UK as a whole, and we're not talking about Ireland. Ireland is not a part of the UK. So we're talking England, Scotland, Wales. It's roughly the same size as the state of Oregon. And look at the difference in accents and dialects there. They go all over the place. There are a ton of dialects over there and different accents. It's no difference here. I mean, excuse me. I have a different accent than you have. You have a different accent than Daniel Haryu has. And a different accent than Billy Burt has.
That is true. There is subtle.
I don't see a different accent if I'm talking to Greg or if I'm talking to Jim Dockrell. It's just a regional accent to me.
Okay, you're right. You're right. Well, so if I listen to Harju or say Billy,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say, because I really don't want to say that it's an obvious, just apparent in your face sort of like difference, but there is that regional subtlety. But I can still identify all these people that you mentioned,
Sure,
as American, and I can identify those people that you mentioned as Canadian as it being of a Canadian linguistic sort of subtlety, although it's regional.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, because if you talk to somebody like Trevor Carter, who is in, I don't remember if he's in Newfoundland or New Brunswick, but Newfoundland. Yes, he's in Newfoundland. You talk to Trevor Carter, his accent is different from Greg, which is different from Jim Dockrell. So they have their regional accents as well.
Hey, listen, Mark.
Yeah.
I just read Billy Burt. He says, hey, leave me out of this. Low. Well, I just since he said that, of course I'm gonna have to single him out. So every time we're hanging out, and he starts talking, I hear oh
geez.
and I hear gunshots in the back, and it says Texas.
But see, there again, even Texas.
Not I'm kidding, but
but even Texas, there are different accents in Texas.
If I close my eyes, I could see Billy on a horse galloping through the desert. If I close my eyes, no, I'm just kidding.
Billy is more central and western Texas. Now you get somebody like my grandmother, who's from East Texas, over near the Louisiana border. She was, "Hi, sugar booger, how y'all doing today?" That kind of thing.
Okay, right.
So it was completely different. So even within Texas, you can have completely different. Yeah. So, and that was one of her favorite phrases, by the way, was sugar booger. Don't ask me how she thought that was a good thing, because I really don't know.
See, but here's the thing. So to answer my question, then, Mark. So once people settled or began settlement in the Americas, North America,
Mhm.
At least from my vantage point right now,
Mhm.
barring the obvious, which I agree with what you said as far as regional,
Mhm.
there was. It seems like it all adapted away from England, let's say,
Mhm. It
pretty
did.
pretty equally. Like it sounds. Yes, you can have people out west and this and that, but there's it sound except Boston, let's say, or New York.
Mhm.
But I think that the influence is so, worldwide, like in that big
Mhm.
city, that you have what we hear in people in
Right.
sort of New York. But for the rest of it's kind of there's a similarity
Yeah. Yeah.
away from England.
And it's just one of those regional things. I mean, I keep having to come back to that, but it's also influenced from other languages, because the southern accent around the Appalachian Mountains and in down into Georgia, some parts of Georgia originally came from the Scotch Irish that settled there. North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, the far eastern Tennessee was the Scotch Irish who settled there. And a lot of them were people who just got the heck away from the Brits and wanted to get as far away as they could. It wasn't even part of the United States yet. And that kind of that kind of just moved outwards and spread outwards. And when you figure our parents are the people who teach us how to talk, if they say, like my grandfather did, if he didn't call it a tire, he called it a tar, that's what you think it is. He didn't use a tire iron to work on a tire. He used a tar iron. But that's how he was taught to speak, by his parents, who were taught by their parents.
Right.
So, it's a fascinating subject for me. A lot of people don't get into it at all. They just couldn't care less. They'll continue to call that thing you drink out of a bubbler, instead of a drinking fountain or a water fountain or a water faucet or whatever you decide to
Those
call
are variations.
Yeah, but so long as we all know what we're trying to say, I
Well,
think
the whole point of language
is to communicate.
is
Exactly.
to communicate
Mhm.
ideas,
Mhm.
laws, contractual. It's to communicate.
Yeah.
Uh, that's the purpose of it. And as we stand here now, the English that we speak, obviously, as a whole, like generally speaking, in North America, it can be broken down as we've mentioned.
Sure.
But going back in time
Mhm.
to its inception, which is a gray sort of fading in, sounded nothing like what we speak. If I don't know if you've seen that
Right.
video, where the
Oh
guy
yeah, you go back to Old English and it's completely different.
he reads Beowulf in
Yes.
that, and it's like,
You want
okay,
to get absolutely confused, try Welsh. Gaelic is confusing enough because they like to throw silent letters in there. Try Welsh. I mean, they've got letter combinations that make absolutely zero sense. And it's all consonants, with a vowel thrown in. I think that's just where they take a breath. You know, it's like you have that one huge that town. I think I showed it to you on the map and showed you the name of the place. I cannot say the town's name, but it ends with Llandesilio Gogogoch.
oh yeah,
And
I've
that's as close as I can get to it. That's a crazy language. And that brings up another thing there, in that you were talking about American slang. You want to confuse somebody from outside of the country, use American slang. They have absolutely no clue what you're talking about. Because, I mean, just something as innocent as you go over anywhere. A chick is a little yellow thing that goes peep, peep. It's not some female walking down the street.
Yeah, and that no matter where you're from, hey, did you see that chick?
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
everybody in
they
America, I mean,
they know what you mean.
they know what you mean, but you're saying that.
They don't necessarily like it, but they know what you mean. You
Oh,
go
right,
to the UK and it's bird.
right.
You know, look at these two birds over here. They know that that means the same thing as chick over here.
And I would know that if I were in England and I'd hear it because of, funny enough, through a song which was Norwegian Wood by the Beatles, because he calls, the chick a bird.
Exactly.
So, and I knew that because of the story. But it's funny how that works, right?
Now, yeah, exactly. But again, they're speaking in the language, the slang, using the slang and the vernacular that they know and understand.
Right.
And we picked up on it because their music was so popular. But we've been on this podcast now for an hour. We've been recording for an hour, and now I'm going to get controversial.
Okay.
Because I'm going to say here straight up in front of everybody proudly, all accents are false and they're affected. It's a put on, and I can prove it.
What do you mean?
All accents are fake. The
Okay.
Southern accent is fake. The Midwest accent is fake. The British accents are fake.
I hear
the
it.
Canadian accents are fake.
Okay.
And I can prove it.
All right.
Sing. When you sing, you lose your accent.
Well, wait a second. That's a different story.
No, it's not a different story. That's what I'm getting at. When you sing, you lose your accent.
Well, it's
Tom Jones does not sound like he's from Wales. Listen to him speak.
But there's
none of the Beatles sound like they were from Liverpool.
Hold on, but can I?
That's true English.
Oh, okay. So it was a.
That's the point I was trying to make.
Okay.
That's true English with no accents at all. Listen to any of them sing.
Okay, but I'm gonna have to see. But are you serious about this?
I'm serious about this. It's something that I've noticed after almost 59 years of life on planet Earth.
Pushback's coming, but I'm going to ask you, can I?
Go right ahead.
Okay,
go right ahead.
This is what my thought. This is what I think. So I see what you're saying, because it's like worldwide. All these people are busting out to, whoa, pussycat, whoa, and so I get, but which is funny as crap. But if you think about that song, it is so ridiculous. I don't even know what to tell you, and it was a hit.
Yeah.
I mean, I
how dumb are we? What's new, pussycat? Whoa, it's ridiculous. It made the guy a millionaire.
I know. It's so with that, and by the way, and that says it all there. Society, everything, just down the that just says it all. With that said, my pushback comes in this fashion. When people are in the singing mode, what is happening is that they're actually using another language in the context of it's a discipline that's occurring that they have learned. Because when you say words, so for instance, I'm going to walk right out. If you say that if you use that sentence, I'm going to walk right out. You're saying it. But if you're singing it, yes, there's a similarity, but there's something different going on. You're using I'm a walk right out or whatever. And you're using tonalities genres that you've heard. So it's a different language. So that's my argument with it. I think you get what I'm saying.
Vowels are rounder. Stresses are put in different areas of a word. Letters are enunciated.
Yeah.
If you go down south, if I go down south and I spent just enough time down south that I drop R's and G's when I'm down there. I don't go swinging, I'm swanging. Things like that. I'm not driving, I'm driving.
But are you trying to tell me that we should
but when you sing it, you'll say driving or swinging unless you purposely change it.
No, you don't say driving. Oh, I see.
Unless you don't say you only say driving if you're from Long Island. Excuse me, Long Island.
wait. I emphasize, and I've never even said, I've never, I've never even said driving.
Yeah.
I've never even said it. But what I emphasized a little bit too much to make the point. But what I'm saying is, you usually say, singing wise, you screwed up my whole thing. You usually say driving or whatever, and you do create that situation. But so my whole point is, it's a different it's a different discipline.
Yes.
So
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on everything that you just said, but it only goes to bolster my case and help me to prove my point that when you're singing, all of the accent is gone unless you purposely do it. Unless you purposely twang it up for a country song or something like that. All of the accent is gone, and that is true English.
Well, I mean,
that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but it's just something that I've noticed. You can take somebody like Brian Johnson, the singer for AC/DC.
You're saying it's international. Everybody understands it.
He's got a loud screeching voice, but if you've listened to him speak, he's hard to follow. He's got such a thick Geordie accent.
Yeah.
It's just, holy cow, that come out of the same guy.
I see what you're saying. So in the singing realm, in the musical realm, everybody can understand it.
Oh, exactly.
It's an international thing. I see what you're saying.
Unless you're Joe Cocker, then nobody can understand it.
I understand Joe Cocker.
Well, yeah, but you're bilingual, so that helps.
He's a good singer, dude.
I'm not saying he's a bad singer. Joe Cocker and Van Morrison are the two singers that are the hardest to understand.
Van Morrison can create situations because of his style. What he's trying, he can't create little situations where you're like, what?
Yeah, what did he just say?
So Billy and Javi just had a little 2-sentence back to back here. If you're from England, you say driving. And then Javi said, no, it's driving. And I just wanted to say that with Jamie Page, our good friend Jamie Page, he does have the ability to, or he's from that Cockney sort of variation, and he said, he said as much. He said as much. But in any event, when he talks, and he'll finish a sentence with see, I said sentence.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually sentence,
right?
But I say sentence.
But we're speaking, and you're speaking quickly, and we do drop letters.
Okay. All right, I just picked it up myself. I said sentence. Sentence. What am I talking? Sentence. Well, so in any event, I just self-realized what the hell
you just did Texas, Massachusetts, and Vermont all at the same time, and I just hope you didn't hurt yourself.
I just started to realize I'm going to end up not being able to speak. So here's the thing. Jamie Page, at the end of a sentence, he will say, damn, dude, he will say, instead of think, he'll say think.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll throw in an F, and so he'll do little variations like that. So they were just bringing it up. I wanted to put that out there because I find it interesting. Not all British people or English use that variation, but I've heard Jamie Page in natural conversation without being jokey, talking and using that bit. And so whatever, I just wanted to put that out there, that there's those variations.
And again, it's a regional dialect, and there's a lot of that in some regions over there. They will replace the TH with a V, so it's not your brother, it's your brother. Yeah. Various regions have various different things, and that's all great. I mean, why not? Because I believe that the language is an evolutionary thing.
It totally is.
The language we're speaking today would have been understood back in the 20s, but if you go back into the 1820s, probably not a lot of it would be understood.
Well, they probably not a lot of it would. I mean, the use of I mean, for instance, I don't know if that's a good example, but the words that we use within it in a laid back sort of way inside of our sentence structures, they might not. They're like, what? And that might be like a red flag to them that these people are definitely not from our timeline. You know what I'm saying? So the words are there, some are new, but some little modernized cultural things we use are inside of these sentences, and they might say, well, wait, that doesn't sound right. These people are not from our timeline. Yeah.
Or not from this area. You know, they're wow. I mean, we don't say thee or thy anymore, or thine, but some places they did. You know, and you also have to remember that back then you had a whole bunch of different cultures coming together. You know, you had German immigration when the American revolutionaries fought the Redcoats. It wasn't just a bunch of British guys over there. There were Germans, there were Scots, there were Irishmen, there were people from all kinds of nations in the British Army over there. And those who stayed, and wave upon wave of immigrants from all over the world, words have evolved. We have, you know, well, just nothing's more American than a hamburger. Well, it's not, strictly speaking, American. And hamburger means from Hamburg, Germany. You know, so we had all these influxes of other languages that have added to our language, and it's just become, you know, the stereotypical melting pot.
Yeah.
You know, but somehow in the last, I don't know, 20 years or so, we've gone from creamy to super chunk, and I don't get it. But that's another story for another day. You know, and I do like the evolution. It's a fun thing. And that's one of the reasons why it's so fascinating to me. It's because I like to watch the language evolve. Yeah. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not so much for the better. But either way, it's a fun ride.
So it is. And, you know, it's funny how we hold on to, I was going to say that a word that they never knew and would think is strange is supersize me, please.
Yeah.
That's something that has
there goes something, and it's something I'm going to have to look up. But you go back a certain distance in the future, the word jumbo has no meaning.
Sir, in the future?
Or excuse me, in the past. I said the future. I meant to see, saying the wrong word is my thing. You go to a certain distance in the past, and I'll look it up. The word jumbo has no meaning.
Jumbo shrimp? How dare they?
No. The word jumbo, let's see, the word jumbo did not exist before the year 1860.
Okay.
The word jumbo came from Jumbo the elephant. Jumbo was an elephant who he was born in Egypt, and via the word always screws me up, circuitous route, I guess you would say, ended up in the US. He was in the UK for a long time, and he was a huge elephant, gigantic, and people just went nutso over it. It was a huge attraction. And he was in the UK. His shoulder height he was 10 and a half feet tall at the shoulder, just ginormous thing. And people just went nutso for it. And the name Jumbo just kind of started being added to everything that was big. But you go back to 1850 and said jumbo, and nobody would have any idea what the heck you were talking about. So it's just little things like that. How do these little colloquialisms enter into our vocabulary? Where do these words come from? Rock and roll. That was not something you would say to anybody in public in the 20s or 30s because it was a slang term for doing the nasty. But then it was attached to the music in the 50s, and brother, look out. Here we go.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's an evolutionary process that I think is funny and
I
a
mean,
lot of fun to follow.
another thing to mention is that I do not know this um, from the past, but I know it from recent past, say 1800s to now.
Hmm.
But I don't know going back in time. But I suspect that it's true, and I want you to
Uh-huh.
tell me, and the guys out there to tell me. The English language has exponentially grown in the amount of words that are available to us to describe, define, and so on. We have a huge cauldron of freaking words stewing in there
Hmm.
now, but back then was much more limited. What say you?
To a point, yes. Um, to a broader point, it was also convenience because formal education as we know it, where kids went to school from kindergarten at age 5 on up till they graduate high school at age 18, is relatively new. I
Okay.
mean, my great grandfather went through 6th grade, and that's as far as he went. You were sent to school to learn how to read, write, do arithmetic, and be able to handle business and communicating with other people. And then that was enough. You had enough education. We need your butt back here on the farm. We got hay to bale. And the first person in my family to graduate high school was my grandfather, my dad's dad. So that's relatively new. So everybody had a limited vocabulary. Some people learned to read and write early and were just voracious readers. Some people weren't. They didn't find it useful. So you had limited vocabularies and limited knowledge kind of working against each other. So depending upon where you go, yeah, we had fewer words.
I'm just
And
saying in the English
and
language,
well,
period.
yeah, in the English language period, with the advent of technology and constant inventions, both physical and advances in medicine, advances in science, and new ideas being brought up, we have new words added to the English language all the time. I mean, just look at since the internet came out, they were the little smiley face that we put on the end of a sentence in a Facebook post so folks will know we're kidding.
That's
Or,
a new word.
yeah, well, they started out as emoticons. Now they're emojis.
Oh, I
So we've gone from smiley face to emoticons to emoji in a span of about 10 years. So that's, two words we've added right there. But
right.
it just expands outwards, look at words like selfie, or people now use Google as a verb. Just Google it.
Right.
Um,
That
yeah.
would be insanity back then.
Uh-huh.
So what I'm getting at also is that if how much more limited was the language back then? It had to be a much more basic thing.
Yeah.
It's my assumption.
I would agree. It would have to be a
I mean,
process of elimination. I mean, you've only got a certain number of things you can talk about. You're out on the farm with somebody who you've been with for ever since you got married. You don't have a whole heck of a lot to talk about other than what the dog stepped in this morning. So yeah, vocabulary is going to be pretty limited. And so there wasn't a lot of use for adding words.
what are we going to talk about tonight, Earl, over
Yeah.
dinner? I don't know. Maybe rocks, or let's go over
Well,
all the
yeah,
parts of the barn. There's a limited amount.
sure.
I,
And
I don't want to say that it was that limited where it's like rock, food.
no, it wasn't quite that bad. I mean, I'm sure it was in some places, but 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 yeah, there were far fewer things because technology really hadn't taken off. I mean, there were certain things. I mean, somebody had to name the saddle,
Yeah.
But and now let me go ahead and blow a few minds out in the chat here. Since I mentioned saddles, people will tell you that there's 2 words. Well, there's 3 words that have no rhyme. They are purple, orange, and month. And all three of them have rhymes in the English language.
Oh, purple does have a.
It does have a rhyme. And
Purple.
I'll link that to Saddles. The word is kerple, which is a strap that goes around the hindquarters of a horse.
How about a
And
purple?
it's also referred to as the hindquarters of the horse. It's the kerple, CURPLE.
Okay.
Google it. And the
You
grunt.
you totally ignored my purple nurple mention.
I got it. I just didn't want to acknowledge it. And the rhyme for month is the word grunth. It's a Hindu holy book.
No.
And the rhyme for orange is blorange. It is a place in Wales. So
Wait. For what? Say the month one again.
grunth, GRUNTH. It's a Hindu holy text. So yes, all three of those have rhymes.
Okay. They're exact, because you can use words that end up with the right month, dunce. It doesn't rhyme. Okay.
No, not quite. No.
Yeah. Month. Once. It doesn't rhyme.
Nope.
You could probably get away with it in a poetic thing.
You could get away with it in a poem or a song. And
in a song.
And maybe a limerick. But you know.
Yep. I mean, hey, you know, you hit us with the impossible. There's no escape. I do want to mention that we do shows every Tuesday here on YouTube. That's Trampled Underfoot Podcast on YouTube. And we have a live studio audience without a studio, but they're out there.
Did y'all know you was in a studio?
And so we have this show. And by the way, our podcast comes out every Tuesday worldwide from TrampledUnderfootPodcast.com.
That's right. You were on a roll. I was letting you go with it, man. You don't need me. Okay, yes. TrampledUnderfootPodcast.com. Sponsored by, once again, Steve Nealon over at Harneal Media, webmaster to the stars. Check him out on harnealmedia.com. I couldn't think of the name of his website, and I only said it like 4 times already. We also have a Facebook page. Come check us out on Facebook. Look for Trampled Underfoot Podcast on Facebook. Drop us a like. Check out some of our posts. If we mention something in the podcast, like last week, Eloy mentioned his killer blues number, Black Cat Train Track Blues. And so we posted a link to it on the Trampled Underfoot Facebook page. I also linked it on the website and in the description of that live chat video.
And by the way, it's gotten traction after that. I don't know if somebody shared it apart from me, but it's like it's kicking butt, dude.
Well, cool. Good. Let's hope it does get some traction, man. I've put links all over the place. So.
That video, it's been freaking, dude, it's been blowing up, dude. I've kept it because I don't want to ruin it, but it's been like playing, like the numbers just keep rotating. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening, Mark.
Well, good. Folks like your music, dude.
It just happened, dude.
Folks like your tunes. Keep posting them. So, but yeah, we usually, and this is Inside Baseball, a programming announcement. We usually record on Tuesday nights. However, someone very near and dear to me, my wife, is going in for surgery next Tuesday. So we will be recording next week on Monday. So that will be Monday, the 25th of November. So I won't be here for Tuesday. So the podcast will be released on Tuesday as normal. It's just we won't be recording next Tuesday. So set your calendars back one day and everybody will be cool.
Yeah, be here on Monday, same time. We'll release over on Facebook that we're going to go live, but we're going to do it Monday. And then I believe we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming times after that, right?
Yeah. Barring complications, of course. It's just one of those things, you know. Life is what happens while you're busy making other plans.
John Lennon. Two other things. One, I didn't get to the actual thing that I had stored for this episode. One, we never got around to it.
That'll work.
Two, we didn't pre-plan anything on this episode. And we just went into where we went, and it's a surprise where we went, and very interesting too.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I like this kind of thing.
But you see how that works, though.
Yeah, I do. I dig the back and forth. I dig the little digressions, and it's almost like conversations paint mental images.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see the last car of the train falling off the track early on, and it was the domino effect, you know. Then the next car got pulled over, then the next car got pulled over, and the next car got pulled over, and here we are in the engine going, uh-oh.
That's exactly the story. We ended up where we didn't expect to, and we walked down a path that forked off into different directions, and it kept on branching out, and eventually we ended up at the bottom of the ravine, looking up, you know, to the top of the canyon and thinking to ourselves, what?
And ended up talking about a subject that I think is a fun one. And I never even got into the great fricative shift. Oh, well, maybe we'll save that for another.
I had some cool stuff lined up. Couldn't even touch it.
We'll save it for next week.
Couldn't even touch it, man. All right. Catch you guys next time. Peace out.
Thank you very much for joining us, y'all. Have a good night.